My life was quite ordinary until tragedy struck. My wife's father, my father-in-law, passed away. He was a kind man, always ready to help others, even at his own expense. Vera, my wife, loved him dearly, and his loss hit her hard. She withdrew into herself, stopped eating properly, and became emotionally numb. Over time, she even had to quit her job. Her employer refused to grant her unpaid leave. I didn't know how to help her. Through acquaintances, I managed to get the necessary medication, and she felt a little better. But one thing remained unchanged. Once a week, she asked me to take her to the cemetery. Usually, we went together, leaving our daughter Karina with my mother. But this time, things were different. My mother couldn't look after Karina, so we decided to go as a family. That morning, Vera was on edge. She made breakfast, but didn't touch her food. When we arrived at the cemetery, she approached her father's grave, and as always, began talking to him. This was familiar. She often had these one-sided conversations, but this time, something felt off. Her voice trembled, her words were fragmented, and then she broke down in tears. I was used to her reactions, but Karina was clearly frightened. "Do you have your phone with you?" I asked my daughter. "Yes." "Then go take a little walk." Karina left, but soon Vera noticed her absence. "Where is she?" she asked anxiously. "I'll call her." Karina answered, saying she hadn't gone far and was already on her way back. A minute later, she appeared by the fence, and we headed home. All day, I kept thinking. With each visit to the cemetery, Vera seemed to get worse, but I couldn't forbid her from going. Exhaustion overwhelmed me, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I fell asleep. I woke up feeling refreshed, but Vera looked troubled. Did something happen? She hesitated for a few seconds before whispering, I don't even know how to explain it. Did you take your pills before bed? Yes, I fell asleep, but she paused, then took a deep breath. Promise me you won't send me to a mental hospital. I tensed up. Depends on what you tell me. Maybe it was just a dream, but I felt like someone was in the room. I decided not to argue, but realized something had to be done. The next day, I insisted Vera see a doctor. She was offended, but she had no choice. Either she went herself, or I'd call her mother. In the end, I booked her an appointment with a private psychiatrist. A few days later, she suddenly announced that instead of going to the cemetery, she'd meet up with her friends. I was thrilled. It was the first positive change in a long time. I planned to spend the day watching football, but then my mom called. Karina isn't feeling well, she said worriedly. I rushed to pick up my daughter. Thankfully, it was nothing serious. She'd just eaten too much candy. At home, she lay down to rest, and I returned to the game. But soon, I heard strange noises. I turned off the TV and listened. Someone was talking. Karina must be chatting on the phone again, I thought. But no, her phone was charging. I ran into her room. Who were you talking to? She looked at me, frightened. No one. A shiver ran through me. I was sure I'd heard voices. I decided to install a camera in her room. Soon after, I took some time off work. One evening, I stepped out to smoke on the stairwell. I turned around and froze. A teenager was standing by the door, the same one I'd seen before. "What are you doing here?" Silence. "I'm asking, what do you want?" "I've come for your daughter." His voice was hollow, his face deathly pale. "Get out of here," I shouted. "I'll take her anyway," he replied calmly and turned away. I burst into the apartment, woke Vera and Karina. "Karina, who is that boy?" My daughter burst into tears. I took his toy from the cemetery." Vera turned pale. "You know you're not supposed to take anything from graves." "I thought it was just a toy." We immediately drove to the cemetery. Karina returned the item. After that, nothing strange happened. My vacation ended. On my first day back at work, Vera went to her mother's, and Karina stayed home. I couldn't wait to get back to her, but just minutes before the end of my shift, my phone rang. It was Vera. "Did something happen?" There was a pause on the line. "Karina's gone." The ground seemed to drop from under me. "What do you mean, gone?" Darkness swallowed me whole. I remember how the phone slipped from my hands, but the ringing in my ears drowned out even that sound. The world around me ceased to exist. Only one word pulsed in my mind. No. I don't remember how I got home. I don't remember running into the apartment. Karina was lying in bed. I stepped closer, my trembling fingers reaching for her wrist. Silence. The world collapsed. Vera was next to me, but I couldn't hear her sobs, couldn't feel her clutching my hand. I just stared at my daughter's lifeless face, unable to believe this was real. Then, ambulances, police officers, words that didn't make sense. Cardiac arrest in her sleep. Just a tragic accident, they said. But I knew it wasn't an accident. We buried Karina 3 days later. Vera didn't say a word, just stared blankly at one spot. I was afraid I would lose her too. After the funeral, I never left the house. I couldn't make myself go outside. I couldn't sleep. On the 7th night, I heard a child's laughter. It came from Karina's room. I froze. Then slowly, I got up, walked to the door, and carefully pushed it open. The room was empty, but the curtains swayed, as if someone had just passed by. A piece of paper lay on the desk. My hands hadn't been shaking. I knew I had left it blank, but now there was something written on it. A short sentence in messy, childish handwriting. "Daddy, he took me." I hope you enjoyed the story. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to see more scary stories. Thank you.